Thank you very much. Dear club members, I'm glad to welcome you all. Great thanks to Olga for giving me opportunity to speak to you. I'll introduce myself. I'm a former banker. I have been in business for the last 6 years. I've been living in Novosibirsk since December 2015. I'm a candidate of economic sciences. I think that everyone will agree that today the whole world and Russia are in a difficult situation. If we all want, then when all this is over, we have a really good future, then I believe that we should think about it today. We have the opportunity to build a completely new civilization, which I will want to talk about today. So, where are we now? If we talk about the world, then this is the civilizational fracture, possible transition to a new technological order, the endpoint of small and large economic cycles. It is likely the end of the modern era as a Leviathan model of the state and disciplinary society, collapse of liberalism as an ideology, and maintaining the system of world order, collapse of the existing geopolitical situation. If we talk about Russia, then Russia is a Leviathan state with a huge number of problems, which from my point of view requires a serious reset. I call on those who are not indifferent to the fate of Russia, the fate of neighboring countries as well as the whole world to unite. Those who want to create a new system of socio-political order, which will begin to spread throughout the planet, and will no longer allow the recurrence of tragedies and will form a new civilization. This new civilization will be responsible for planet Earth and bring only good to the world. I have analyzed what is happening and came to the conclusion that our main task is not a class struggle, not a recreation of the USSR, not a restoration of the existing regime, not a war with fascism to the bitter end, and not eradication of corruption. Our main task is to change the ethical model. Let's digress a little bit and talk about world contradictions. The first world unbalanced contradiction. For some reason, people with very low moral qualities strive and come to power. On this diagram, I give the levels of awareness of a person. The lowest, primary level is disregard for oneself. Next comes development of self-responsibility. Then responsibility for your family, further responsibility for the team, for your country, for the planet, and at the top, responsibility for the spiritual world. For some reason, it always turns out that people with the level of responsibility development of oneself stand at the head of the state. Or, in a rare case, people with a level of responsibility development of their family. Then we get a family clan at the head of state. Why is this happening? From my point of view, it all started in the middle of the 16th century, as I said earlier, with the so-called state of modernity, or Leviathan, created by Thomas Hobbes. It was a response to a series of religious wars in Europe. What is Leviathan? Firstly, it is a rigid separation of society from the authorities, suppression and control of society by the state. Secondly, it is the irremovability of the elite that is in power and governs the state. With the help of the media and propaganda, society is constantly re-electing authorities that are beneficial to the elite. Even in the USA, where the Democratic and Republican parties replace each other, the elite remains the same and continues its policy. In what form does Leviathan appear? In fact, in different forms. This is liberalism and fascism and communism. Remember the slogan of the Great French Revolution: freedom, equality, fraternity. So freedom is liberalism, equality is communism, and brotherhood is fascism. If we talk about liberalism, then the methods of suppression in the system are very sophisticated. They include dictatorship of law and faceless institutions, credit news, and as a further development, digital concentration camp. Another basic unbalanced contradiction is humanity's lack of a meta-position in relation to our planet. We are destroying our planet. In fact, we cut the branch on which we sit. We create industries that destroy the environment. We are constantly fighting wars that destroy ourselves. In one part of the planet, people are starving, while in another part, food is simply thrown away. And here is a purely Russian basic unbalanced contradiction. Discrepancy between the ethics of the elite and the ethics of the people. In his book Behavior, Russian Slavophile philosopher Konstantin Krylov writes that about 400 years ago, the Russian elite began to preach so-called Western ethics. Western ethics, according to Konstantin Krylov, sounds like this. Others should behave towards me the way I behave towards others. That is, it is the ethics of profit and showing by example that everyone should do the same. This is the liberal value system. According to Konstantin Krylov, the deep Russian people continue to preach the northern ethics. In total, Krylov writes about 4 types of ethics: southern, eastern, western and northern. So, as you see now, these concepts do not quite correlate with parts of the world. So, Eastern ethics is not necessarily the state of the East and the Eastern despotism. The Old Testament is also Eastern ethics, the ethics of prohibitions: do not kill, do not steal, etc. Northern ethics says, others should not behave towards me in a way that I do not behave towards others. Moreover, the important thing here is not others. The important thing here is I. It is important that I myself know how. I understand what is right and what is good and what is harmful. Northern ethics is the most developed among the 4. See, civilization develops like a child. When a child is born, he begins to repeat after everyone. This is Southern ethics. Then he is faced with prohibitions. Don't go there, don't do that. This is Eastern ethics. Then he becomes a teenager, begins to play pranks and try the world for strength, stuffing bombs and starting to understand what is good and what is bad, what is possible and what is not. This is Western ethics. So today, the whole world lives according to Western ethics. That is, planet Earth is in adolescence. And only when a person grows up, begins to understand what is good and what is bad, then Northern ethics is born. Why is this happening? All our troubles come from the fact that we, Russians, Ukrainians, Belarusians and all speakers of Russian and languages close to it, existentially strive for the good. Many Slavophile philosophers spoke about this in the 19th century, but due to the fact that our elite preaches Western ethics, we cannot reach our full potential. Indeed, Western ethics can be rephrased. I do what is beneficial to me, and what happens next is not important. This is one of the reasons for our troubles, but not only this. According to Konstantin Krylov, who died relatively recently, moreover, he is a Russian nationalist. Every ethics has a dark side, the so-called polludia. If, in a society, the elite preaches teenage ethics, then the deep people begin to slide into polludia. How does Northern ethics sound on polludia? No one should do what I do not do. If I don't have something, then others won't either. If I can't do something, then others shouldn't either. Northern polludia is essentially a concept of the worldview of the so-called Russian world. What is the Russian world? We are on the side of truth. We save the victim, destroying terrorists and Nazis. We are the victors' liberators. That is, concentration is not on our problems and development, but on teaching others how to do it right. So we ourselves have toilets on the street, gas not being installed, but we will go to teach others. How to fix this situation? My answer is, the elite should start preaching Northern ethics. And northern ethics should sound like this: I do not do evil myself and do not let others do it, or I bring good and make others carry it, but only with the help of methods that do not themselves create evil, and only on condition that I can distinguish between good and evil. That is, we understand, feel and do good, we recognize, fight and do not do evil. How to implement it? The first thing is to create a new system of civilization. What I mean, the higher the level of moral values, the level of mind, will, education, upbringing a citizen has, the higher level he should be in the social ladder. How to do it? With the help of Northern democracy associated with Northern ethics, as opposed to the Western democracy. What is Northern democracy? This is how we choose politicians today. We choose the picture on TV by the whole country. We look, and someone draws it for us. We like it and we vote for this picture. How should we vote in the Northern democracy? We choose in a small group someone we personally know and trust, and then we control him. By the way, this has already been tried to be implemented before. Something similar was in the USSR. There was also so-called organic democracy. All this, unfortunately, rolled down to authoritarianism. But today, thanks to new technologies, it has become possible to implement Northern democracy, and I will talk about this in a while. So, what is the essence of Northern democracy? The mechanism is: I choose who I personally know and control this person. The idea behind this mechanism is to divide society into groups and build a social hierarchy based on the principle of areas of responsibility. At the lower level, a person is responsible for himself. Then he creates a family and is responsible for the family. At the highest level, a person is responsible for the whole world in a broad sense, according to Vernadsky. How to organize these small groups? I believe that you need to rely on the third level of awareness, the development of your family. The task is not to allow people with the second level of awareness, responsibility for oneself, come to power. Since the individual is the basis in teenage democracy, in such countries people with a level of responsibility for themselves come to power. Let's get down to specifics. How to form these primary associations of people? They can be called differently. I conducted a survey in my Telegram channel and the word community won, which I will use with your permission. This is not yet the final term. What is important to consider? There must be appropriate software, kind of socio-political network that will help build this system. Thanks to such outstanding people as Mark Zuckerberg, Pavel Durov, Steve Jobs and others for having created the corresponding technologies. So, first, 10 families must unite. There may be some restrictions. This does not affect voting rights. All 18 plus have the right to choose and be selected. These 10 families enter information about themselves, their children, if any, parents, relatives, neighbors, professional interests and hobbies into the software. The AI of the program allows registered people to unite on certain grounds. Further, other families and non-family people join these 10 families according to the same principle. I roughly calculated that in such a community there would be approximately 35 to 37 adults, plus minus. Then, the members of the community get to know each other, learn more about each other, and then choose their leader and representative to the земство and local authorities. I will talk about these institutions in more detail later. The next slide is probably the most important. This is what society looks like in a northern democracy. There are two types of authorities. Conventionally, I gave them the names local and земство. These names are not, of course, final. Local authorities are responsible for science, education, medicine, sports, culture, the judiciary, as well as interaction with the media and traditional religions. Zemstvo authorities are responsible for foreign affairs, the electoral system, the monetary system, budget, taxes, social funds, the Center for Economic Planning, the army and special services. If someone is fond of Vedic philosophy, then the local power is the Brahmins, or spiritual power. The Zemstvo power is the Kshatriyas, the power of warriors and managers. So the community has chosen a representative, for example, in the local government. At the next level, 10 representatives from 10 communities gather on the principle of uniting through software, get to know each other and choose the best for the next stage. Already at the 5th level, we elect approximately 250 representatives to the local and 250 representatives to the Zemstvo authorities all over Russia. Further, these 500 people choose the leader of the country, executive, judicial, monetary and credit authorities. Starting from about the 5th level, I propose to choose representatives not by just voting, but to conduct tests and practical challenges for applicants. Each community selected representative will have KPIs that can be tracked and controlled on the mobile app. That is, the community that nominated a representative by putting, for example, dislikes, can recall him by a majority of votes. I suggest that people who do not aspire to heights or achievements unite in a community of interests and choose a representative, and then control the implementation of their interests. Through the mobile application, you can also implement direct democracy, conduct polls and direct voting. Subsidiarity is an important component in my concept. What is it? This means that all issues that can be resolved at the lowest level should be decided at the lowest level. Why collect all the money in the general budget at the top, so that later you can distribute social contributions like the generosity of a gentleman, if it can be done at the community level or any other level? Why do I call Northern democracy a new civilization? Northern ethics says others should not behave towards me in a way that I do not behave towards others. The main thing here is not others, the main thing here is I. I am already an adult. I strive to be good. I distinguish between good and evil. Other systems of ethics do not offer this. Southern ethics says, I don't know how to do it right, show me. Eastern ethics says, others know better how to do it right, I do not contradict. Western ethics says, I don't know how to do it right, but everyone will pretend that this is how it should be. Only in the Northern ethics, I know what is right. Rather, I must know, I must learn. Surprisingly, the central question of the metaphysics of morality becomes the driving force of civilization in only one of these 4 combinations, in the combination of North. If we educate such a person, then he will differ as a Cro-Magnon differed from a Neanderthal. The system of relations in society which I presented is more correctly displayed as a circle, because there will be no suppression or submission. Free people will choose each other for positions of responsibility and interact. I believe that such a system is possible because in a family, if the family is healthy, it is possible to observe the interests of both the family as a whole and of each of its members. If this is true, then at a higher level in the community the same things can be done, to observe the interests of the community as a whole and of each family in its composition. History proves that in the 19th century in Rus there were communities, Cossacks, Vecha traditions of the Novgorod Republic. I have already mentioned the community. At a higher level, it is possible to observe the interests of both each community and the association of 10 communities, and so at each higher level. What do we get as the benefits of joining communities and choosing representatives for the following levels? The absence of contradictions between the interests of the individual and the collective, the absence of division into society and the state. Authorities are built from the bottom up, respecting the interests of each individual and society as a whole. I argue that with the help of Northern democracy we can distinguish between good and evil for the individual and society. How? Subsidiarity at different levels of responsibility in the community ladder. For example, the problem of non-functioning elevator is solved at the community level of the building in which the elevator is not working, and the question of whether we fly to explore Mars and Venus is decided at the top level. If in the community its leader or representative to the Zemstvo and local authorities disagree on what is right and wrong with the point of view of the majority, then any of them can be called back or changed. If the dissenters are in the minority, they may voluntarily leave the community and join another. Has there been anything like this before in history? I said that there were some attempts, but only now the necessary technologies have appeared. Internet, gadgets, mobile applications, smartphones, artificial intelligence, social networks, and the ability to communicate remotely. The ability to monitor the KPI in real time and recall the one you choose and send up the social ladder. A few words about the economy. I have a concept of a mechanism for the market flow of property from owners of capital to employees. This is a topic for separate presentation. About property. In addition to private, personal and state property, there must be family and communal property. Further, within the framework of the Zemstvo power, there should be the property of an association of 10, 100,000, 10,000 communities, etc. For example, there is a city with a population of 500,000 people, or 10,000 communities. This city has a thermal power plant that supplies it with heat and energy. This thermal power plant should belong to the association of these 10,000 communities, and a market economy with the state should gradually come to this. In addition to building a society, we need the right education. To do this, the best representatives should come to the local authorities at the top level. What should a proper education include? The goal of education should be to educate a human creator, a technological entrepreneur. From the first grade, you need to teach astronomy in order to form a meta-position in children in relation to the planet Earth. We need to form a person who is constantly striving beyond the horizon. We need to teach a culture of asking questions and looking for an answer to them, and not choosing from pre-made answers. We should pay attention to philosophical and theological teachings to teach children distinguish between good and evil. Education must be electronic and the material must change rapidly. Theoretical subjects can be taught remotely. My children are now studying mathematics, Russian, English and programming in one of the online schools, and they really like that all the teachers are from all over the world. There should be no grading system in the primary grades, so as not to label children. And teachers should have time to constantly improve their skills. Schools should form space for successful socialization through additional modern sections: robotics, entrepreneurship, family building, political art, design, programming, etc. It is necessary to form a powerful teaching staff. The teaching profession should become one of the highest paid. Future. In philosophy, there is a contradiction between kairos, cyclos and chronos, or between moment in time, cyclic time and linear time. I believe that this contradiction can be resolved by adding one more element, futuros, or forecasting the future. That is, we must constantly create and strive to implement image of the future. In fact, Northern civilization is an exit to the level of the creator. A few more words about economics. I believe that a single center for economic planning based on a supercomputer and artificial intelligence should be created. AI will analyze all existing needs and natural, technological, entrepreneurial, intellectual resources and develop a unified plan for the development of the country's economy. In the future, this can be applied to the whole world. Market economy, free enterprise, focus on efficiency, cost reduction, implementation of technologies in production are being preserved and developed. Why do we need economic planning? To complete two global tasks. The first task, meta-position in relation to Earth. We need an economy that does not harm our planet. For example, within the framework of a single plan, we set the task of developing a car that will function for 50 years, but be modernized every 5 years. This is an example to understand what we will be laying in all automotive concepts. We satisfy the same needs, but we dispose of less cars. Another example. We are developing an energy source that does not harm nature, for example, thermonuclear fusion. The second task is to reduce the financial gap between the rich and the poor. The gap should be, even if 10 times, but it should be not because some exploit others, but because some are more enterprising, active, they can assemble a team and develop their project. How to combine plant and market economy? We need to create the right monetary system. It must be an electronic ruble. I believe that this is necessary to get rid of all existing cashless circulation. Hello, bankers. Cash circulation should also be removed as much as possible, leaving it only where it is impossible to do without it. Within the framework of the electronic ruble, it is necessary to create three monetary circuits: red for foreign economic, yellow consumer, and green investment and commercial. Between these circuits, based on blockchain technology, barriers should be created for the flow of capital. Remember how I said how I have a concept for the market flow of capital from capital owners to employees? With the help of the same mechanism, a damper is provided for the flow of money from the green to the yellow circuit. What is it for? So that active investments do not lead to an increase in inflation and fluctuations in the exchange rate. At the same time, in the green circuit, we must carry out active emission and give money to those who want to prove themselves within the framework of a single plan for the development of the economy. For example, we want to create a world-class tablet. A person has resources, a team. He knows where to buy parts. He comes, tells, justifies his business plan and receives money at 0% per annum. Another man comes and says that he wants to build a plant for the production of strong alcohol. He is told that the unified plan for the development of the economy involves reduction in the consumption of strong alcohol. He is denied a loan. Another person comes and says he wants to grow a vineyard for the production of wine with top quality. In this case, we can give funds, but for example at 5% per annum. The meaning here is: money for business development should be available to everyone who has ideas, a team, and a desire to develop something. Unification of the world. If northern democracy is implemented throughout the world, then the borders between countries will disappear. Borders are a relic of the state of Thomas Hobbes. Questions about who owns an island or part of the land will be meaningless. Thus, the safety of our civilization is ensured. I propose to conduct a pilot project for the implementation of northern democracy in the city of Novosibirsk. According to my calculations, 30,000 communities can be created in Novosibirsk. Already at the third level, elect representatives to the local and zemstvo authorities in the city's districts. We have 10 districts. At the fourth level, we form 30 deputies of the local city Duma and 30 deputies of the Zemstvo city Duma. In the future, when northern democracy spreads throughout the country, these 60 people will nominate 6 representatives from Novosibirsk to the all-Russian Zemstvo and local councils. My lawyers analyzed the Russian constitution and found out that the federal law on local self-government allows the application of northern democracy at the municipal level. What is needed for implementation? The political will of the elite of the city of Novosibirsk and the Novosibirsk region. Amendments to the regional law and amendments to the charter of the city of Novosibirsk. We can start from one of the districts, for example, Sovietsky district, academic city. To do this, you need to develop software. There are many programmers in Novosibirsk, especially in academic city. I've just told you the essence of my concept of northern democracy. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel, my Telegram and Yandex.Zen channels. You can find the links on my website https://oberstboot.ru. Thank you for your attention. I am ready to answer questions now.
Вернуться с войны, на которой родился и рос, на руинах нищей страны, под дождями и слез. Но не предан земле тиран, объявивший войну стране, и не видно конца и края этой войне. Я пророчить не берусь, но точно знаю, что вернусь. Пусть даже через 100 веков в страну не дураков, о гении и поверженный в бою. Я воскресну и спою на первом дне рождения страны, вернувшейся с войны.